it seems that the rematch between Sergey Kovalev and Jean Pascal is all but signed for January 30th, 2016 in Canada. As a selfish boxing fan, I'm disappointed by this news. Because if you're going to fight overmatched opposition, and yes, Jean Pascal is overmatched against Kovalev, if you're going to fight overmatched opposition, then at least fight someone that you didn't already dominate and beat less than a year ago. I know that Cafe Duvar main events are a small promotional outfit. They don't have many other fighters on their books. And they do have difficult relationships with some of the other promoters out there. In Cafe Duvar's own words, though, she's able to work with her enemies. She said this many times. She came into the game suing, I think it was the WBA, the WBC, and Don King, but then ended up making fights with those guys. So she might not have many fighters herself, but she can work even with her enemies, and she said that in her own words. Now, one of the people that she could have had fight Sergey Kovalev instead of this rematch with Jean Pascal is Gonzalez, the guy that Pascal just fought. And the reason why I say that is because many people believe that Gonzalez at least deserved a draw in that fight, if not a win. And if you rewind your minds back to when Derek Chisora fought Robert Helenius, officially, Derek Chisora lost that fight. He's got an L on his record, next to Robert Helenius' name and whatnot. So Derek Chisora lost. But Vitaly Klitschko looked at the fight and said, you know what? I don't care what the judges say. Derek Chisora won the fight, and therefore he deserves a shot at my title more than Robert Helenius does. And he gave Chisora the shot, even though he was officially coming off a loss. So Kovalev and main events, Cafe Duvar, they could do that with Gonzalez. And at least Gonzalez is a different fighter stylistically to Jean Pascal, because we already know how Jean Pascal fights. We know what the Sergey Kovalev rematch is going to look like. But with Gonzalez, he's much taller than Jean Pascal, taller than Kovalev. Big, broad shoulders, strong guy, good jab. Totally different style. So it would play out differently than a rematch with Pascal. It would give us something we haven't seen before. We've never really seen Kovalev fight someone as big and tall and who has such a good jab as Gonzalez. I'm not saying Gonzalez would beat Kovalev at all. I'm just saying it's interesting to have Kovalev in there with a style and someone of a set of dimensions which we've never seen him up against before. That's all. But at the end of the day, I guess this all comes down to money. That's why they're fighting Pascal again. Because Sergey Kovalev don't have a fan base of his own in the US. So he has to live off the fan bases of fighters who do. Or he has to live off fighters who do have fan bases. Pascal has got a big fan base in Canada. When he fought Nathan Cleverly and he originally won the title, Cleverly had a fan base in the UK. Hopkins is a boxing legend. He got a fan base in America. So this is Kovalev's problem. I mean, how many champions do you know that fight the same guy in that guy's own backyard twice, even when they dominated the guy first time around? I mean, I'm sure it's happened, but the point being, you don't do that if you've got a fan base yourself. So I'd rather Kovalev went to Russia. He's been talking about having this Russian homecoming. I'd rather he do that and fight Gonzalez in Russia. I'm sure they'd lap it up. But instead, it's going to be Pascal in Canada again. Disappointing. Really disappointing for me. Now, I'm also disappointed in main events and Kovalev for pulling out of the purse bid to fight Adonis Stevenson earlier this year. And a lot of people still seem to be deluded about this whole situation with the purse bid and Stevenson. They seem to think that it was a setup by the Stevenson camp to make it look as though they wanted the Kovalev fight. But that's not what it was. It was actually the other way around. And I'll prove it to you right now. Normally when you have a unification fight, nobody is mandatory for the other person's title. Okay? When you have a unification, your team approaches the other team and you sit down and you negotiate. If you can't come to an agreement, you go your separate ways. Kathy Duva took it upon herself to approach the WBC and make the WBC agree to install Kovalev as the WBC mandatory, the mandatory for Stevenson's title. That is unprecedented for the champion of one organization to become the mandatory challenger for a different organization. That doesn't normally happen, people. It's unusual, very unusual. When Kathy Duva did that, she knew that if Stevenson accepted the fight and didn't vacate his title, that it would result in a purse bid. Because you only have purse bids when someone is a mandatory challenger or someone is fighting for a vacant title. That's the only time you have purse bids. So Kathy Duva was the one who created the purse bid situation in the first place. And she knew damn well that she wouldn't be able to win a purse bid without Heyman. She knew that going in. So why did she create that purse bid situation then? I'll tell you why. Because shortly after she created that purse bid situation, she came out in the press in several interviews and said, I'm sure Stevenson's going to vacate his belt. He's not going to take the fight. He's going to vacate. Kathy Duva was trying to call Stevenson's bluff. She was trying to force Stevenson to vacate his belt so she could have Kovalev fight someone else for the vacant WBC title. That's what the whole thing was all about. She had no intention of having Kovalev fight Stevenson for that belt. If she did, she wouldn't have tried to force the WBC to make Kovalev mandatory for Stevenson's title, because that situation can only ever end up in a purse bid that she knew she couldn't win. So it was all just smoke and mirrors from Kathy Duva and Team Kovalev on this particular occasion. They had no intention of making that fight. None at all. Yeah, if they did, they wouldn't have created this purse bid situation. They wouldn't have lobbied the WBC to make Kovalev mandatory for Stevenson's title. They wouldn't have done that. You know? So a lot of people are deluded about the situation and whatnot. Now, there's no question that Stevenson pretty much did the same to Kovalev before Kovalev fought Hopkins. They agreed to fight. Stevenson backed out of it. I think they had some type of verbal agreement. Stevenson backed out of it, moved over to Showtime and signed with Al Heyman. So back then, Stevenson had no intention of fighting Kovalev, and he ducked Kovalev, or his team or whatever ducked Kovalev at that point. No question. No question about it. That did happen. But this year, it was the exact opposite. It was a role reversal. This year, it was Team Kovalev who had no intention of fighting Stevenson. They were just hoping Stevenson would vacate his WBC belt so they could fight someone else for the vacant title. And that's what lobbying the WBC to install Kovalev as mandatory was all about. Otherwise, why do it? Because you know if Stevenson accepts, it's going to end up in a purse bid you can't win. So it was just a little situation where Team Kovalev tried to call Stevenson's bluff and it backfired, you know. And as far as Kathy Duva's reason for not entering the purse bid or pulling out of the purse bid, she says that it would put them in trouble with HBO. It would sour their relationship with HBO. Maybe it would. I'm obviously not behind the scenes. I don't know any of the HBO hierarchy and the big bosses there and all that. I don't know the contract that she has with HBO. And by the way, Stevenson claims that Kathy Duver or Team Kovalev pulled out of the purse bid before they'd done the deal with HBO. That's what he claims. But either way, I personally don't believe that HBO would drop Kovalev and Kathy Duver because they entered the purse bid and had to go fight on PBC or Showtime. I don't believe it. As long as HBO were financially compensated, and this takes place in boxing all the time, by the way. As long as they were financially compensated, I'm sure they wouldn't have dropped Kovalev just for going over to PBC or Showtime to fight Stevenson. I mean, it's ridiculous to think that they would. Because most people think Kovalev's going to win. Let's say he goes over there. Let's say he takes the Stevenson fight and it ends up on PBC or whatever channel, Showtime, wherever. And let's say Kovalev wins. He knocks Stevenson out. And HBO's just dropped him. Then you've got Kovalev, an even bigger star than he already is. Even more marketable. Even more profitable. And then here's HBO just dropping him. I mean, it's insane. They would never do that. They've got way too much competition to deal with at the moment. From Showtime and PBC to just be dropping their, big fighters like that. HBO ain't going to do that. That's complete nonsense. Kathy Duver is chatting shit, in my opinion. They ain't going to do that. When Bernard Hopkins fought Kovalev, Bernard Hopkins was a Showtime fighter. But he did a deal when he went over and fought Kovalev on HBO. I'm telling you, as long as your network is sufficiently financially compensated, they ain't just gonna drop you, particularly not when they're in the position that HBO's currently in, which is a difficult position because of what Heyman has done with PBC and putting all these fights on television, which for everyone to watch, network television, free to air. They put HBO in a difficult position. So they ain't gonna throw Kovalev away just because one of his fights he's forced to go and fight in a different network. They ain't gonna do that. Kathy Duver's chatting shit. I'm telling you that now. So, yeah, without laboring the point too much, people, that's clearly what's going on here. Kathy Duver's talking absolute bollocks. For whatever reason, she don't want the Stevenson fight at this point in time. Forget about a purse bid between the two camps. Let's have the networks bid for the fight. Because networks also do that. They bid for fights. Both HBO and Showtime have got plenty of money. So that's a reasonable solution. Anyway, let me stop going on about this stuff, man. It's making me frustrated. What do you think about this Pascal rematch? Are you actually looking forward to it? Do you disagree and think that the first fight was actually really good? Because I didn't. I think Pascal was thoroughly dominated. He got the crap beat out of him. He got dropped once. And the stoppage, I don't know how some people can think that stoppage was premature. Because seconds before that stoppage, the referee broke them for some reason. I can't remember if Pascal slipped or something like that. And Pascal literally stumbled from one corner of the ring to the other like a drunk. That's how badly his legs were gone. And when the action resumed, Kovalev came in and hit him with a brutal right hook. Pascal's a very brave, tough guy, but he's one of those guys who's too brave and too tough for his own good, and he could have got himself seriously hurt. You let situations like that continue, and that's how people end up with blood clots on the brain. Come on, people. Pascal had nothing left. Go look at the final shots that he was hit with. Brutal shots. He's never been hit like that before in his career. Come on, come off the foolishness about it was a premature stoppage. Get out of here. It's like, you do know that Kovalev has killed people or killed someone in the ring before, don't you? He's actually killed a man in the ring before. And since that time, Kovalev has not been pulling his punches. killing a man has not taken any edge off Sergey Kovalev's mean streak. This guy's got very, very heavy hands, and he's a vicious, vicious puncher. So please lay off that premature stoppage nonsense about the first Pascal fight. We know how the second fight's going to end. Kovalev by hook or by crook is going to win again. And I don't mean he's going to cheat, but I just mean whatever method it is, whether it's KO again, early, late, points, whatever the case may be, Kovalev's going to win the fight. Pascal's not going to win it. Put your house on it. Pascal can fight more defensively and try and run away and make Kovalev have to chase him and get through the 12 rounds maybe. But who cares? He's going to lose anyway. Come on. If you disagree, you disagree. Let me know why. If you agree, you agree. Whatever. Drop your comments below, people. It's happening. I'm out.